Digging for treasure and bodies associated with gold is as old as the very first civilizations. In no other great kingdoms of the past and the present is the pursuit of gold more special than in ancient Egypt. This is the story of all the pharaohs' gold, from ancient times to today, from Upper to Lower Egypt, from the eastern desert to the western desert, a unique journey in the pursuit of gold.
The gold of the pharaohs are the most spectacular thing in the world. The gold of the pharaohs is the magic of Egypt. It's the mystery in front of everyone. If people think that the mystery of Egypt is the pyramids and the Sphinx, no. The mystery of Egypt is gold.
Well, the greatest discovery of gold from ancient Egypt, of course, will be that of the tomb of King Tut, which was found by the British excavator Howard Carter in 1922. Well, it was the discovery itself because there was a lot of gold that was found in that tomb, although it's by no means the biggest tomb in the Valley of the Kings. In fact, it's one of the smallest tombs of the kings. And what makes it more significant and probably even ironic is the fact that King Tut was really a nobody if you compare him to the great kings of the 18th dynasty or of the empire. He came to rule the poor boy when he was about 9 years old, and he ruled for about 10 years. Yet, you know, he is one of the most famous kings from ancient Egypt now, and I suppose this is the irony of history.
But in the public's imagination, and despite his minor role as a pharaoh, Tutankhamun remains the most known of all kings because of the huge amounts of gold found in his tomb by Howard Carter in 1922. Gold that was displayed around the world for all to see.
Look at the tomb of King Tut. He ruled only for 8 years. 5,000 artifacts has been discovered, at least more than 600 beautiful pieces of gold. And look at the sarcophagus of King Tut. How much weight? Tons of gold. This golden boy is known to everyone all over the world because of this major discovery.
It's well known that over 4,500 pieces were found in that small tomb, and a lot of gold. Of course, the most famous of them is the mask of the king himself and the coffin, which is about 110 kilograms of gold. That's why, in my opinion, it was and still is the greatest discovery of gold from ancient Egypt.
The story of Egypt's new discoveries and ancient gold are interlaced. A story that begins and ends in Egypt's eastern desert. These mountains in the eastern desert close to the Red Sea were once mined by ancient Egyptians. Now they are owned by the Pharaoh Gold Mines, a new company that has acquired from the Egyptian government 5,000 square kilometers of gold-bearing land. Based on these ancient mines, this new mining activity in Egypt could, if proved, be of world-class standard, worth as much as $100 billion.
I'm a geologist. I work in Australia. I'm responsible for the discovery of 2 major gold mines. Once you work with gold, you get what we call in the business of gold fever, and you can't work with anything else. It becomes something in your blood, and you out there looking for it day and night, and you dream about this bar of gold at the end, of your hard work.
Sammy is of the old school of prospecting, an Egyptian Indiana Jones who works by instinct, looking with his eyes at the character of rock formations and his feelings for them, a gold hunter in his own country. Given that the mines were once worked by ancient pharaohs, Pharaoh Gold Mines has a credible head start. There was gold there before.
That's what I mean by we depend on our looking for gold on visual visual things in the hill. When you look at the part of the hill there, that's all dark. Here it's very, very rich and it's very pale in color. And when you break it, you know, that reddish color there, which is the oxidation of sulfides as pyrite has been oxidized, and then you get the, you know, the quartz veinings, and the and inside this quartz veining is where is a fine grain gold. That's beautiful stuff. You can eat it. It's beautiful.
But new gold finds need to be proven. This requires more than the prospector's gut instinct. It needs science. Pharaoh gold mines have started to prove with science the value of one of the larger mines, mined by the ancients, the Sukari, or sugar mine.
The narrow vein, that narrow vein there, that's all what the Pharaoh took. And that narrow vein keep going down to down as far as we could test it. We went down the hole about 80 meters down in depth, and we sampled that vein, and we're getting samples which are saying 500 gram plus. That's from the sampling on the ground and also from our drilling. That small part of the hill, which is a quarter of the hill, which we tested today, we outlined a reserve of about 2 million ounces. These 2 million ounces of today gold price worth about $600 million, which means that the whole hill down to 100 meter, which you know been tested so far, will contain gold in excess of $2.5 billion. And that's still open. It's still a deeper we drill, the deeper we want to find. That is a lot of gold. Quite a lot of gold.
But why has Sammy chosen the eastern desert to find gold? To find the answer, we have to look back at the history of the region 3,000 years ago, and the significance of an ancient map produced by King Seti and his son Ramesses II of the 19th dynasty.
When I first came to Egypt, I came to Egypt actually to look at other projects, not gold projects, and in all of the chairman of the Egyptian Geological Survey and Mining Authority, I saw a map. This map was the oldest known geological map in the world, and was drawn by King Seti.
This is King Seti. There are many copies of the map around the world, and until now it has been assumed that the gold it pointed to had already been taken.
Well, this is a very interesting map because it goes back to what we call the 19th dynasty. That's the 13th century BC. It does explain in a graphic way some of the roads that led to the gold mines in the Eastern Delta.
Gold was very important to the ancient Egyptian, and we know from the time of Ramses II that we have the first map that shows the route of gold.
The map was really fascinating in a way. It shows the roads in the Eastern deserts, and shows the hills in the Eastern desert, and shows the location of the different old mine in the Eastern desert. This drew my attention, and being a guy who loved gold and gold in my blood, you know, I sort of decided to really go and have a look, you know, in the area where these maps are.
Gold was godlike to the ancient Egyptians, immortal and permanent like the sun. King Seti would send out teams of prospectors to the eastern desert to find it. Ancient geographical surveying was much the same as it is today, part of it based on gut instinct, and part of it based on basic geology. Once you think you found it, you have to prove it's there by digging for it. But in ancient times, you also had to set up an infrastructure for transportation, communication, and defense. Warring was a problem for those early prospectors. This temple at Bahamina in the eastern desert was built by King Seti. Here Ramesses, his son, also a king, is seen slaying his enemies. But there is a more special story attached to this temple. Before the temple was built, King Seti sent out a gold prospecting team to the area. The team did not return. King Seti and Ramesses went to find them. They camped at Bahamina. Ramesses himself went out to look for the prospectors and discovered that the local Bedouin of the time had poisoned the prospectors' water wells and killed them. Seti and Ramesses dug new wells at Bahamina and discovered the mine in the process. They crushed their enemies.
And they built the temple, and that temple became then the halfway house between the people who living in Luxor, and the king who's living in Luxor, and the prospector who go out to mine, becomes a halfway house, and go back again.
The Bahamina mine is close to King Seti's ancient temple. Pharaoh gold mines now plan to prove that there is gold here too. This mine is also shown on King Seti's map, one of the larger mines belonging to the ancient Egyptians, now to be mined by Sami. The Romans also worked these mines. The British mined here as well, leaving the area in the 1920s for political and economic reasons. The fine dust and rock left by the Romans and the British is called tailings. It also contains high yields of gold.
The ancient Egyptian virtually gone all over the eastern desert looking for gold, and our record indicates that there is about 120 old gold mining, or old areas where they discovered mining.
In the eastern desert, the Egyptians mined gold from the hard, rocky desert valleys, opening deep shafts to get to the rich gold veins underground. They also practiced alluvial mining, or surface mining, literally picking up rocks to be carried, crushed, and sorted into gold dust.
Here, you know, where the ancient Egyptian dug gold from, you know, you can see where they've been digging gold from the holes. This hole there, there's a hole up there, there's a hole there, and there's a hole there. And that was their housing, and where they used to bring the gold in and grind it. And you can see also part of their potteries around here if you look carefully. And this piece here. And you see the pottery here also is uncooked. You know, this pottery is sort of been dried in the sun, hasn't been into an oven. You can see this mud come from the Nile, and you know, it's been dried in the sun. And you can see some of the handles around, you know, around here, for example, there's the top of a jar.
The work involved thousands of people, most to dig. But there would also have been people to supervise the mining, cooks to feed, officials to count, priests to bless, and soldiers to protect and guard. Ancient mining in the eastern desert was a tough business for extraordinary people. The pursuit of this ethereal substance for and on behalf of god kings required great belief and strength from the workers. Rocks had to be manhandled and transported to a crushing area. But first they would have to be reduced to a manageable size by hand, broken into smaller pieces and crushed into fine particles, and then the gold separated with water and a panning dish to reveal the glittering prize. Gold for a god king, more than a mortal, a living man both feared and revered, your labor and possibly your life, a gift from you to your god. Despite the evidence of ancient gold in circulation today, in Egypt's museums and ancient buildings, there is little to show for it. But there is ample evidence which shows how it was mined and in what quantities.
When they look for gold, or they mine gold, they used to come to an area, build their settlement just above the valley on the, you know, on the slope of the hill where they getting the gold from. Guess the men will go out and dig the rocks, you know. They're using handheld hammer, rock hammers, and the grinding stone, and they bring the rocks down to where the settlement is, and they use grinding stones. The ancient Egyptian grinding stones was an oblong one, you know, sort of come, you know, up and down. Here is the area where they used to break the rocks and grinding it, and you can see here a grinding stone, you know, a pharaonic grinding stone where they used to grind the rocks, and also part of the one here is a Roman grinding stone. And you know, you can see the different shape, and you can see the rocks which they brought from the hill. This small, you know, there's the quartz rocks which is, you know, carrying all the gold. That's rocks they got it from this opening up there.
Large amounts of water is needed to wash and clean the gold, as well as to provide basic conditions for thousands of people. Despite the desert, water was not a major problem for ancient miners. As in other desert areas in Egypt, if you can dig deep enough, there is water beneath the hot surface. Wells, temporary and permanent, were dug and set up in the valleys of the eastern desert, close to the mining settlements.
After they grind the rocks, they bring it here and they wash it to get the gold out of it. And whatever left, you know, after it gets the gold, the grind rocks which is left is the tailing. It's very, very fine. They took all the gold out of it. There is some gold here still, but at that time that wasn't very economic for them to take it. And that's sort of the tailing from the old time. It must have been very, very well structured operation. I will imagine that people used to live here, you know, they come and live here, they don't go back again to the Nile Valley, and, you know, they spend all their life here for the sake of the kings, like I spend all my life here too.
You see, working in the Eastern Desert must have been very hard, very tough. And you can imagine, you know, the gold workers and miners going out of the valley with their caravans of donkeys loaded with water and food, and, you know, meeting the hardships. And you can imagine, by day desert can be hot, by night can be very cold. Yet they went there headed by their chiefs, and sometimes the chiefs could be high officials in the state, and they would go and dig there. I don't know how to look at it. Of course, for us, we'd like to think it was a labor of love.
Again, you know, that's gold. You know, that's, you know, people endure everything for the sake of it, you know. So you know, you go to places where it's very, very hard to live, but, you know, the lure of gold, you know, make you suffer. I think life was, you know, it was very hard, you know, by today's standard, you know, we come here in air-conditioned cars and, you know, and put fridges in the camp and and cooks and things like that. You know, these guys used to come and live here, you know, it must have been a special kind of people.
The Egyptians pursued gold for more than just jewelry, wealth, or power. Gold was symbolic in itself, godlike, immortal like the sun. Kings and the ordinary men who served them would labor for it until death, because in life this shining, immortal, glittering essence, gold, would be transformed into power in the afterlife for the kings and nobles of ancient Egypt.
And we know that the Egyptian had plenty of gold, and that's why we have a letter that's written from the king of Mitanni to King Amenhotep III. He's telling him, gold in your country is like dust. Please send me some.
This particular tablet, found at the site of El Amarna in Egypt in the 1880s, is part of an extensive archive of diplomatic correspondence and concerns the discussions between King Amenhotep III of Egypt and King Tushratta of Mitanni. The Egyptian king was hoping to marry one of Tushratta's daughters, and the letter concerns the price which will be paid for the bride. Tushratta asks Amenhotep to send very great quantities of gold, and he adds the significant comment that gold is like dust in the land of my brother, the king of Egypt. And this shows the two monarchs haggling, in effect, over the price of the bride. And it makes the point that gold was the commodity above all others, which Near Eastern monarchs wanted from Egypt. This was the material for which Egypt was famous and which was reputed to exist there in fantastic quantities.
It is in death in ancient tombs that we can see a record for the use of gold in ancient times. Gold consumed all aspects of ancient Egyptian life. The management of afterlife, economy, and nation depended upon the control of it. Officials like Neferembet buried in the Valley of the Nobles at West Thebes. Neferembet was a high official to Ramesses II and was richly rewarded. He was responsible for the storing of the jewelry in the temple at Karnak. These records show the recording of the jewelry that had been taken to the temple. Testimony in death to his life and role in the control of gold for his king. The most important of all the nobles' tombs in Thebes for our understanding of gold is the tomb of Rekhmara. This earlier tomb shows the different types of industry in ancient times, and in particular the gold industry. Rekhmara was the minister to King Thutmoses III in the middle of the 18th dynasty. Among images of everyday economy and industry are the jewelry makers and gold workers, smelting and forming gold ingots into objects of symbolic value, skilled craftsmen and officials supervising the formation of golden objects of beauty to be counted for use both in life and in afterlife. The mining of gold in ancient times was a tough and challenging process that needed thousands of people. The business of making art from gold, on the other hand, required great skill, delicacy, and craftsmanship. The process of jewelry making, like mining, has not really changed. The artists and jewelry makers of Cairo's markets and souks make jewelry that still contain the art and creative ideas of the ancient world, formed for use today in a process that is as old as the pharaohs themselves. Decorative forms are stamped, forged, and cut. Delicate creations, heated, fused together, cooled with water, hardened and toughened. Oxides and discolorations removed with chemicals, revealing shining objects of beauty and value. Many art forms around the world are still but copies of ancient ideas. We owe much in our creative jewelry to ancient Egypt, as we do for our perfumes, hairstyles, and architecture. Seti and Ramesses were not the only Egyptian kings to search for gold in ancient times. At the dawn of the 18th dynasty, before Seti and Ramesses, an ambitious woman, the first to take the royal Egyptian throne, called Queen Hatshepsut, sent out ships from the Red Sea to the legendary land of Punt. Her temple at Thebes is possibly the most spectacular building in the Valley of the Kings. It is built on 3 levels. The third is currently being restored. The male successors to Hatshepsut, which included Thutmose III and Ramesses, all destroyed evidence of her rule and her use of the Valley of the Kings as a necropolis. This picture shows one of the few images left of the great queen. Here she is, Amun-Ra, God King of Egypt. It is on the 2nd level that we see evidence of the great expeditions Hatshepsut sent to Punt for scientific research, and for ivory, incense, and of course gold. On this long bleached corridor wall, we can see in great detail a record of the ships she sent, the animals, flowers, and the fish of Africa they brought back to Egypt. The wall also shows gold being balanced against animals, as well as a detailed account of visits to Egypt by African kings from Nubia and Punt. This is one of the great queen's funerary tombs. Neither of her tombs are open to the public. This is the first time anyone has traversed down the very steep 120-meter tunnel since Howard Carter in 1922.
Take it easy, Fabio. It's very steep. Okay, guys. Ready? Good morning.
It's for us now.
Look at the light behind you. Not too fast, that's it. Careful.
Yeah, I can keep one eye in the viewfinder. Sometimes one out.
Slowly. Okay, be careful, careful.
Not on that rocks.
Wait for us if the light dangles behind, okay?
Yeah.
All right. That.
Long way.
Yeah, well, it's probably not hard for them to find their way back to the top. Ready? So be prepared.
Here is more
okay?
difficult.
Okay,
There's
just be prepared for a bat flight, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of it. Just in case. Let's get the light in front.
Yeah.
Careful.
Egyptologists now believe there is possibly much more to this tomb. Might archaeologists find Hatshepsut's body and her gold? For now, the tomb remains empty. It is the strange and mysterious use of gold by kings and queens in ancient times that provides us today with a better understanding of why the ancient Egyptians craved it so much.
Well, I think gold was very important in ancient Egypt for 2 factors. The first factor was, of course, economic. Egypt was rich in gold. The gold mines in the Eastern Delta were very important for the Egyptian economy. And in fact, some people would like to say that Egypt was the California of the ancient times. So if you are talking about commerce or trade or manufacturing, whether inside Egypt or outside Egypt, gold was in great demand and was in great use. That's one level. The other level, of course, is symbolic. Gold was the metal of the gods. People will have to remember that the rays of the sunshine of Egypt are like gold. So the flesh of gods sometimes was thought of as being represented by gold. So you have the 2 things. You have the commerce and you have religion, and I think these are 2 enough reasons to make gold very important in ancient times.
The Egyptians had daily life gold amulets, and also some funerary amulets, like this solar. They called it usich, and that is a kind of a magical funerary artifacts. And this is why the gold artifacts that found beside the deceased, mainly that's what he will use in the afterlife. Gold for the pyramid was very important because, as we know, that the pyramids were cased with white fine limestone. But during my excavations, I found some important discovery. First of all, I found a capstone or a pyramidion that once topped the pyramid. And during the clearance of a site called Abu Sir that's located between Saqqara and Giza, means it is between the two most important sites in Egypt, the pyramids of Giza and the step pyramid at Saqqara. We discovered some limestone blocks. In one of them, showing the workman dragging a capstone, and it say in the top that it was cased with gold. And the second scene showing ladies dancing. By interpretation, when the king finished building the pyramid, the workman will come and put the capstone that was cased with gold. It meant to the Egyptian that the pyramid is finished. And everyone dance and sing because the pyramid was a national project of the whole nation. I say that we discovered in Egypt until now 30%, and 70% is buried underneath the ground. Can we imagine the amount of gold that's hidden under the sand of Egypt, waiting for archaeologists to discover all of that?
You know, the record shows that they took about 55 million ounces of gold, which on today's price worth around $20 billion, and that's why I'm here.
But as in all great civilizations and empires, the rule of the god kings would, unlike the sun fixed in its golden eternity, come to an end. The wheel of life and history is immortal and ever-changing. A new set of masters would come to dominate world history. The pursuit of territory, gold, food, precious stones and metals would also preoccupy their minds.
Well, the Romans came to Egypt for various reasons. Of course, we can talk about the love story between Cleopatra and Mark Antony, but this is just a nice story which has been propagated by lots of authors, not least of them, of course, is Shakespeare.
This small temple in the eastern desert belonging to Queen Cleopatra was also used for collecting gold and precious stones. Here, sheltered from the harsh sun, Cleopatra once bathed, attended by her servants and courtiers. Was she contemplating her riches from the desert or her future adversaries, the Romans? In their dealings with the Romans, the Egyptians found that gold was not the main priority. Food for war and conquest, the incorporation of Egyptians into the Roman army, and precious stones for buildings in Rome came to the top of the list. They needed Egypt. Pax Romana, or the peace of the subjugated, was the Roman way of securing global power, globalization being a very old idea.
Rome was having its Pax Romana, which covered almost the whole of the ancient world. For them, they had a huge empire and they wanted a granary. I think the most obvious granary for them was the fertile land of Egypt. So I think, from their point of view, the grains of Egypt had a paramount importance, and I even think it's more than gold itself. It might have occupied the second important role in the Roman mind concerning Egypt.
I guess when the Roman came here, you know, the Roman were more or less the rulers, you know, the occupiers, but the guys who really sort of gone out and dug for gold and directed the operation and really dug it are the ancient Egyptians, not the Roman. Because they are the people who know the desert, they know where the gold are. The most interest the Roman have in the Eastern Desert is the rocks, different rock type, the imperial porphyry and different type of limestones or artwork for status, building, They didn't really pay that much attention for gold. They even part of the rocks around Sukkari here, they cut some of these rocks and used it, took it all the way to Rome to build some of the buildings there. Some of the Vatican's rocks came out of here as kind of porphyry which been the Vatican, built from, came out of here, from the Eastern Desert.
While the Romans sought their geographical and territorial prizes around the planet, the Egyptians continued to use gold in life and the afterlife. Gold was still plentiful.
Well, we have lots of discoveries, as the viewers will know, from ancient Egypt, because we have over 120 foreign missions working in Egypt every year. But the most recent one that was done by our colleagues in the Supreme Council is the discovery of a big graveyard in one of the oases in the Western Desert called the Bahariya Oasis. About 4 or 5 gilded coffins were found in that graveyard, and the work is still going on. It has its significance because it comes from the early Roman period, and it's fairly remote from the Nile Valley, which shows that the Egyptian civilization was not only limited to the Nile Valley and the Delta, it covered really almost every square meter of the Egyptian land.
The discovery of more than 100 Greco-Romana bodies in 1996 at the Bahariya Oasis in the Western Desert may in fact contain thousands of mummies and bodies, some of which may also be covered in gold. The site of the ancient cemetery is located on the road out of Bahariya, not far from the Temple of Alexander the Great to the north. The open diggings that can be seen are estimated to be only a fraction of a 6,000 square kilometer site containing possibly 10,000 mummies. Many of the mummies are gilded in gold, reminiscent of the gold of Tutankhamun. This golden mask and waistcoat covered in gold shows the deceased's offering to the god Thoth. These were family tombs with both husband and wife, and sometimes children buried together, each mummy distinctive with its own character. On each side, the record of death and offerings to the gods.
I always say to people that I'm a lucky person to work around the pyramids and the Sphinx. And I made lots of major discoveries that everyone talk about it everywhere all over the world. But I never thought that I would work with mummies. But it happened that I went 225 miles west of Cairo. I excavated 4 tombs. I found in 4 tombs 105 mummies covered with gold. And that's why I said, when I opened one tomb that contained 43 mummies, I looked, I saw the rays of the sun coming above the mummies. I saw the rays of the sun became gold because gold was shining. And I'm expecting to work in the tombs of the upper class because I found until now the tombs of the middle class. Can we imagine what kind of gold the upper class will have?
But the story of ancient gold continues until today. Gold finds, bodies and artifacts continue to emerge from the sands, caves, and tombs of ancient history. Today, tomorrow, new discoveries continue to change our understanding of the ancient world. But why is so much gold missing? And why, from time to time, are bodies and golden caches found?
We have from the New Kingdom a very important thing, a papyri called the robbery papyri. It shows how the mayor of the East Bank complained against the mayor of the West Bank because he was stealing gold from tombs. But the mayor of the East Bank said, he went to the vizier and he said, I have a proof that the mayor of the West Bank steals gold. Then they appointed the committee, and it's very interesting that you can see the inspection saying, this piece of gold is stolen. It is not there. Counting all this amount of gold, because Ramses II and Seth I explored a lot of gold. Even they almost used lots of gold. Can you imagine if the tomb of Ramses II was found intact? What's going to happen? What kind of artifacts going to be discovered?
The papyrus dates to the 12th century BC, and it's part of a large group of documents which are concerned with the attempts by the authorities to protect tombs in the Valley of the Kings and the surrounding area. At first, the authorities tried to protect the tombs by arranging official inspections, but eventually they seem to have realized that it would not be possible to guard them indefinitely from robbers. And at the end of the 12th century, they decided to empty the tombs as part of an official operation of clearance. We have records which mention the opening of tombs, and it's clear that all the valuables were officially confiscated and were then channeled back into the economy, which at that time was seriously weak. The bodies of the kings were then re-wrapped in new mummy bandages, put into plain coffins, and secreted away in special caches in different parts of the necropolis of Thebes. The most famous of these caches was discovered in 1881 and proved to contain about 30 royal mummies, most of the gold and valuables, of course, long ago having been stripped.
In the last 200 years in villages around the Valley of the Kings, houses were built next to tombs deliberately so that the occupants could steal by digging down through the floors. Also in those days, villages had certain rights over discoveries. The most famous discovery of royal bodies was made in 1881 by the Egyptian authorities. The discovery was tremendous, giving Egypt its royal mummies. The tomb included Ramesses II and 30 other royal bodies. In 1871, a local family, described by some historians as tomb robbers, would find an entrance in a cliff face. This scene possibly happened many times over the last 100 years. The lure of gold is so great that national treasures are being lost to treasure seekers, robbers, and others. One Abdul Rasul, a resident of Qunah village on the west bank of Luxor, in front of the Valley of the Kings, made his way along a local valley path, now called the Agatha Christie Path, onto the cliff face just south of Queen Hatshepsut's temple. Abdul Rasul noticed a chimney or cleft in a limestone cliff, a geological feature frequently used by local tomb cutters in ancient times to create an entrance to a sepulchre. Returning later with his brothers and other Qunah men, they cleared the tunnel and removed a wooden door. Behind the door, they found an intact cache of ancient kings. To protect their find, they claimed the tomb was empty and that it was inhabited by spirits. Stories differ on what happened, but over the next 10 years, they re-entered the tomb on at least 3 occasions. In 1881, the Egyptian Antiquities Service officials got wind of it and acted. The big players escaped the net, but the Rasuls were found with antiquities. They were tortured. A dispute broke out within the family and a confession made by Mohammed Abd Rasul. When excavated by Emil Bruch, the bodies of Amenhotep I, Tutmosis I, II, and III, King Seti I, and Ramesses II were found, as well as queens and other royal bodies. The tomb was a cache of mummies hidden from tomb robbers in ancient times by the pharaohs themselves, but the gold was not there. Today, Egypt is a Muslim country. Not noted for its natural resources, the gold of the ancients brings tourists from all over the world to marvel at its beauty. And the discovery of new gold based upon ancient mines would certainly help transform the country's economic prospects.
We Egyptians would like to think there is still more gold in Egypt. And I think it's about time we started exploring the possibilities.
You know, the amount of gold, you know, is amazing, which put it bigger than any of today's mining districts, which we hear about. But amazing also that you don't see bigger mine. You know, all the mine you can see here are really small mine, you know, which means that they were very, very rich mine. And when we, you know, we realized that we got at least 9 big, you know, world-class mine exists in this area we have. And we have to go out and to prove that one of them are really big. And that was just mainly because the nearest one to our camp was started with there. We know it's going to be a big mine, but it's not the biggest we have.
Elsewhere in the world, mines that were mainly discovered and worked in the 19th century continue to produce gold for the world market. The biggest mines are in South Africa. Gold mining there is well established, a known quantity, largely unaffected by the fluctuation in price on the gold markets. These are relatively high-yield mines where wages, technology, and capital are controlled to produce gold that has sustained value. The ancient Egyptian mines are older than those in South Africa, or anywhere else for that matter. Can they be proved and bring wealth to Egypt?
If we don't come with big results, we shouldn't be disappointed. Because I believe the ancient Egyptians knew almost every gold mine in the land of Egypt and they exploited it.
Not everybody thinks so. But then again, not everybody is a geologist. If King Seti started these mines, and others, including the Romans and the British, mined them in the past, is it not possible that there is a lot more left in this vast desert landscape?
This fact became clearer to me when I met one of the greatest Egyptian geologists, Dr. Rajdi Said. And he was surveying, you know, the gold mines in the eastern desert. And they said that everywhere they went with their modern equipment, they thought they stumbled on something new. And when they went down, they found that the ancient Egyptians were there before them. So I don't know whether we'll find new gold mines or not, but as we say in Arabic, only Allah knows.
Gold has magic and mystery, and the magic will continue with ancient Egypt. And I always say that you never know what the sand of Egypt might hide of secret.
That's the reason why, you know, a guy like me, coming to these areas, trying to get part of that.